2023, 6 p.m. Roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Eugene Costabile. Here. Councilmember Christina Hernandez.
Here.
Councilmember Gilbert Robles.
Present.
Councilmember Megan Wasalti. And Mayor Arizona.
Here. We're getting feedback here.
Oh, sorry about that.
I'm not sure if that will revert.
Okay.
All right, if you will, please join me in the pledge of allegiance. And then after that, a moment of silence, moment of thanks, appreciation, condolences. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Anyone here wish have a moment of thanks, appreciation, condolences? I do for Syria and Turkey, still, what is it, 50,000? 50,000 plus, so. We good here? All right. We'll go to next item, the ceremonial calendar. On our agenda, we have we're pulling Josue Ramirez, the police officer, but we're recognizing firefighter of the year, Guadalupe Reyes, fire engineer. Is he here or not?
He's not here. I spoke to him yesterday, said he'd be here, so.
Oh, there
There he is. Okay.
Here in the flesh. First responders, they always get here eventually.
Thanks.
Oh. Chief, would you like this?
Please.
Okay.
Thank you.
That one's better than that.
So
Is,
what?
yeah, you can talk.
Give me what's the worst. Here.
In and out. No, this one's better.
Good one. Tonight's my honor. It's been a bit delayed, but to present the Guadalupe firefighter fire engineer of the year, Guadalupe Reyes. The thing that makes it this interesting, first of all, you see the rest of the staff that's here with him. I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to hire Mr. Reyes, and I got to see his passion for the service. But one thing I didn't really know about him is he is our premier jokester. And it seems to be his favorite pastime is waiting till I'm passing and then scaring me. He does a very good job of that. He, for me, is a lot of times like the heart and soul of the fire department, as far as keeping people up, keeping people prepared. But I got to see the flip side. We had a gentleman who had walked into town and he had been shot in the arm and in his stomach. And the police officer was there. He wasn't quite combative, but he wasn't really being cooperative. I saw the fire department show up. Fire engineer Reyes stepped in and calmed the gentleman down. For me, it was a real work of art. And all the years I've been doing police work, to see how calm he was, how professional he was. And I've got to follow them and the rest of the crew around. It's almost like he has two personalities. He is full of life and joy and laughter when we're at the station. But when he turns it on, he is a ultimate professional, and he makes Guadalupe very, very proud. And it was my honor at the Elks Club to be able to present him as the fire engineer of the year. And with this, there were certain certificates that were given by our pro tem mayor and others there. And I just like our city council to be able to recognize Guadalupe Reyes as our 2022 fire engineer of the year for the city of Guadalupe.
I'm not very good at it. That's short. I started here about almost a decade ago as a reserve. I worked part-time here at night from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. And I had a full-time position as a FedEx driver. So some nights really went a long way, and at the end of it all, it was kind of worth it when I got hired here as full-time. So I'm still very grateful to this day for the position that I'm in, because very few are able to have it. And I just want to thank my wife, because she's been my #1 supporter since day one, and she's been there through it all. And I just want to thank the two captains here, because without them, honestly, this department wouldn't be where it was or where it is. They're really good instructors, and they taught me a lot in life and in the fire service. And we are very lucky to have them, and I'm very lucky to be part of this department and the city. Thank you for everything.
What are we doing?
I don't know.
That's it.
Okay, no, we said we're lucky to have you, so thank you.
Thank you.
Oh. I failed to look at the agenda review. I would like to move item 14 to 13 and 13 to 14. Moving the request for funding to item 13 and approval of veterans name for item 14. Is that okay with the council?
Yes.
Staff? All right, next item, item 6, the Family Service Agency, the Little House by the Park. Mr. Duarte, Sam. Welcome.
See.
Good evening, everyone. All right, well, thank you for inviting us to do a, kind of the end of the year report 2022 update on the work that Family Service Agency has done in Guadalupe. Just really quickly, the Family Service Agency, well, it was actually the Little House by the Park was a standalone nonprofit for quite a few years before we merged with the Family Service Agency. And it was established in 1992 by the Guadalupe Union School District. And I need my glasses. It's really blurry. So just really quick review of the work that we've done. One of our major, let's see, this one.
Is it on? No.
There you go.
Oh, there it is. Okay, all right. So case management is one of the things that we work with families who are struggling with basic needs, with counseling, any other issues that might come up. We have room for about 20 families that we're working with at any one time. And we also work with them in a community engagement piece. Some of our community changer parents are here, 2 of them. They attend the city council meetings every once in a while. And this piece of this part of the work was established maybe 10 years ago, the parent engagement piece. It was sort of the school district was looking for more purposeful engagement on behalf of the parents, meaning they wanted to be a part of the committees, of the boards, and be part of the decision-making processes that happen. So usually parents, they did the accompany kids and bus rides or kind of, help as teachers aides probably. But with the parent engagement piece, we're having them take on more of the leadership roles. One of the things that the parent group came up with was the Guadalupe Parent Academy, which offers education in a couple of areas, including health and wellness, general education, and leadership development as well. Another project that the parents conceptualized was the Guadalupe Reading Festival. This is a collaboration with the school district, and we're going to be going in our 13th year in March. And this is I think our mayor has participated in that festival. It's encouraging parents to read and to be more engaged, but also to take leadership roles within the coordination and of the entire project. Baton de Color, they've done some fundraisers, language access as well. They've advocated for school bus stops. I think this happened maybe 10 years ago. They have been part of the LCAP parent engagement, health and wellness, and also civic and USD board engagement. This piece here just shows a quick overview of the projects or what we work with: basic needs, health and wellness. One of the quotes that inspired the parent engagement piece and the parents really loved is, "What you do for us without us is not for us." I myself being an outsider or outside of Guadalupe, my home is the Central Valley. This was very important to make sure that we tap into the families here, parents, the community, and have them, since they are the eyes and the ears of the community, make sure that they are being heard and that they take on the leadership roles to change whatever it is that they see needs addressed. Family support. Oh, somebody's changing. Oh, is that you? Alright. Family support services, Raquel Valerio, she's our community liaison. She also does some case management, educational programs, helps families fill out applications. This does the overall guidance of, who they should see. If they need to see a case manager, one of our family advocates, she guides them towards that. And then we have our family advocate, Eunice Valle. She's currently has 13 cases, 13 families who she is working with. And some of these families are also part of our parent engagement program as well. She helps with basic needs, health education, again, counseling services, which FSA tasks, and then provide moral support. Sometimes families or individuals need just having a conversation and so on. So that's part of the work as well. Building community. And then I mentioned the parent engagement program. They're known as the Guadalupe Community Changers. They help advocate for, right now they're working on the Fair Housing Mobilization Project, which is funded by the Fund for Santa Barbara and the McCune Foundation, who have been supporting the community changers for 13 years. They're working with the Fresa Food Equity Project, Guadalupe Parent Academy, community education, parent involvement, Parents Against Bullying, and also attend the city council meetings. They attend the city council meetings and they report back to the larger group every week. And our amazing Mireya Peña is, who many of you have worked with, is in charge of the parent academy and the parent engagement. I mentioned the reading festival, encourages parents to read. There you can see a picture there of a car club, lowrider car club. Let me see. Yes. There it is. Yeah, that second picture there. These guys were they volunteered to read to kids, and we had a workshop with them on how to engage kids and how to read to them. They were pretty intimidated at first, but they took charge, and it's pretty amazing, pretty awesome to see. And so we'll be needing some readers in March. Maybe we'll reach out to some of you to, take a group of kids and read to them in Spanish and English. We'll have a Spanish reader and an English reader. And here's some of our social media posts. there is the last year's, family, the reading festival, and there's our mayor, reading to kids in one of the classrooms. And we'll look at community cleanups. This was big last year, 2020, 2021, and 22. And Mireya is also, has been in charge of that. Formal commitment to removing trash from the streets of Guadalupe. And the goal is to present to the city council a powerful case to demonstrate the urgent addition of trash and recycling bins throughout the city. Climate change information, volunteer opportunities, and community engagement. This is part of the engagement phase. And there's the Fair Housing Mobilization, again sponsored by the Fund for Santa Barbara and actually the McCain Foundation as well. And the goal is to support educational workshops around fair housing, tenant rights, and affordable housing advocacy. So far, the community changers have connected with Santa Barbara Tenants Union to learn more about their advocacy and organizing efforts. That's also in the monthly meetings. So we have a lot of monthly meetings with the community changers. The Guadalupe Community Changers Board meeting is the first Thursday of the month, and they share community concerns, identify areas to focus on. Whenever we write a grant, we geared it towards what they identify is a need or what is urgent. And then we have a community organizing and planning meeting, second Tuesday of the month for about an hour and a half, and share news, concerns, and sign up for leadership opportunities. We bring in new parents if they're interested in participating in the community changer group. That's where we could tap into them. And we have the Fair Housing Committee meeting, third Tuesday of the month. And this is also to share information around housing, tenant rights. And then finally, Fair Night. This one is, we don't have a set date, but we'd like to make it more of a regular thing, maybe every four months or so. And so we'll be looking to add that in the Fair Night. And that's pretty much it. I mean, there's a lot more work that we'll share, but we'll keep it short and sweet. Any questions?
Several, I'm sure. Well,
I don't have any questions. I just want to thank the Little House by the Park for being so engaging with the community. I did choose to run because of the community changers. They were such a huge inspiration. I see them as my moms, as my aunts and uncles, and for them to try to make such a huge impact in my community, in our community. It was so amazing to see them move things forward. I've learned so much from them, and I'm grateful for them to allow me to work with them. And so I look forward to seeing you guys continue to build community in the city of Guadalupe.
Thank you.
where are you located now? Are you?
So we're at the Riverview Apartments and
Okay.
also the Guadalupe Court.
Okay.
I haven't memorized the address, but yeah, so we're at the Riverview Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays. And we're at the Guadalupe Courts on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 8:30 to 4:30. We're looking for a location, one building, so if anybody has any leads. Be really nice to have something in downtown.
Just, any question, I'm gonna ask a couple more, sir. You good?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Prior to COVID, we started meeting, several of us, council persons started meeting at different sites. And we need to do that again. We met at one point, the chief was there, and I don't know if Todd was there or not, but at the Riverview and with the parent group, and we need to do that again. In our one of our budgets, we have resources for bilingual translation here that we need to address. And I know that I saw an article in the Times regarding Santa Maria's. They had resources to actually have Spanish speaking translation, but there weren't many people that actually participated in that level. And I think that it's probably intimidating for people to go to a city hall to speak, but I think we need to reach out to different communities, especially the Spanish speaking in the Mixteco. And I know that we had this barbecue for, I'm gonna call them Pioneer Street folks last Saturday, the 18th, yeah. And those resources went to Family Services Agency and the Little House because you folks worked directly with the majority of the folks that are there. And we really appreciate you all being there because there's that trust level that you had with the residents there. And I'm sure that the Maria and Eunice are really active there. And it was good to have Dora, who's Steph was speaking. I think she is.
Dora, yeah.
Yeah, and there's no way that
Right.
that I or any, well, maybe somebody here speaks Steph, but you needed to have that trust. You had a picture here of a monthly meeting. Where was that picture? Was that
Which one is this?
slide 11? I don't know what. It this one here.
Oh, yeah, the monthly.
Yeah.
meeting. What are the changers?
There's a monthly meeting.
There's three of them.
Number 11. I think it's 11. That one.
Yeah.
Where is that?
Oh, that's the old location.
Yeah, that's a little, by the right part.
That's where the,
Yeah, that looks good.
yeah.
On the farmer's market side, I know that we haven't heard much on the farmer's market, updates, and I don't know if you,
We'll give you an update. I'll ask Mireya, she's been attending the press meeting.
okay, all right, good.
Yeah.
Okay, any other, comments or questions?
Definitely let us know if you need readers for the event. I'm very excited for that. I think it's really popular. And so we really appreciate that. And then, of course, like Mayor Julian was discussing, having presentation or representation at these meetings. I think we're all open to, any chance that we can be out in the community is always a positive engagement opportunity.
Staff, any questions? Nope. Sam,
All right,
thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you for what you
Thank
guys do. And
Thank
ladies
you,
do.
Sam.
Thank you. Item number 7, community participation. I have one so far. Mr. George Alvarez.
Good evening, city council. Staff, and I can't say couch potatoes since we don't have any television anymore. That's an issue that had to be settled down the road. I went to the board of supervisors this morning and let them know the problem we have in Guadalupe. The big problem is we're short of police officers. A handful. If you understand that the state of California requires 2.5 officers per 1,000 population, we have close to 10,000 here in town. We should have about at least 18 to 20 officers plus. I don't think we have more than 7. Excuse me. Can I get that clarified by the chief of the number of officers we have? It's an important issue that has to be solved. How can we have public safety when we have maybe 2 officers at a given time taking care of this city? Public safety is the #1 issue in any community. And man, we're behind the 8 ball here. So I took it upon myself to ask the county to look into the probability, because I'm a local citizen, lived here all my life, 74 years of it, to maybe work with you guys in establishing a relationship, collaboration with the sheriff department, if it's possible. Everything's possible when we try. So I'm dropping the dime here, letting you know what I am up to as a public citizen. Okay? I'm not circumventing your authority. I'm just giving you a suggestion how we have to solve a problem here. That's one. The homeless situation. Some of the homeless people we've had here have been violent. They've broken into facilities. Had one broken the other day. We had taken to the police department, sheriff's department, Sam. Unbelievable. I had the windows broken a few years back to report it up. But there's no consequence dealing with them having the responsibility to pay for damage. They are the homeless, touchless people where they can get away with everything. I have empathy for the homeless. I ran the shelter when we opened it up in Santa Maria with Toromyoshi. For a year, familiar with that population. Homeless coordinator, basically for the Catholic Charities. I'm familiar with that population. If we do not have laws to be enforced, anyone will run rampant on this. So on the homeless situation, I would like to see us collaborate with the agencies for referral. Tokens may be set aside for the people, give them a bus ride, the community. If you give anything to build, to bring them in, the old movie, build it and they will come. You'll be inundated with homeless people. I'm waiting for the inundation in Santa Maria and the county. It's gonna be a fun situation. Water issues. If you read, there's a lot of postings on social media about how bad the water is in Guadalupe, over 11 of them. From odor to being, and I don't know what we do as far as blending concern with the cleanup. We have a well over there at Pasadena. That water goes to the $1 million tank. Is it cleaned? I don't know. These questions I'm asking. And what in the hell is happening with our state allotment for the water that we pay? 17 million in taxes. We owe, paying over $500,000 in interest a year on it. No one talks about what the balance is, and we're not getting water. State of California owes us what, 500 feet, the owes for the water every year. And we haven't got it. What are we doing as a community to assure us that we have clean water in this community? That's all I'm saying. Have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. I see no other requests to speak, so,
You might have one. Let's see someone's done.
okay.
Not very good at this, so can you hear me? I'm not very good at this, so you'll have to bear with me. Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Lillian Doty. I was walking my dog on Manzanita a while ago, and I noticed a recreational trailer up against the house, perpendicular to the house on their driveway. So I took a picture of it. I went to a community meeting at Mr. Metzmer's house about a month ago. And the speakers were Mr. Bowden and Mr. Cash. When Mr. Cash finished speaking, he opened it up to the people there. I got up and I showed him my picture. And he said, "You're talking about the trailer, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Well, if you want anything done, you have to come to a city council meeting and then something will get done." Now, when I moved in here a little over 2 years ago, I was given a binder with a bunch of paperwork and a copy of the CCNRs. And I'm wondering if every owner in this development, Pasadena, has a copy of these rules. Why are the violators getting away with the violations? And why do we who have complaints, why do we have to come down here and ask you, tell you the story and ask you to go out and do your jobs? That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Do I get an answer now or not?
The chief's hearing what you just discussed, and we can't respond to that because it has to go back to the
All right.
chief, and we'll follow up on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Anybody else out there? Request to speak? If not, we'll go to item 8, community consent calendar. Following items are presented by council approval without discussion. Is there anybody that would like to pull an item for discussion?
I would like to pull H, and actually item 1C specifically.
Okay. 1C, code compliance,
Report.
anybody else? Is there a motion to approve the balance of the consent calendar?
I'll motion to approve the balance of the consent calendar.
There's a second.
I motion to second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All right, HC, code compliance report for January 2023.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So my question is on the data that was provided for the monthly summary. This was prepared by the code compliance officer. Is that correct if I'm reading it?
Yes, I don't have the report in front of me, but, yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
So I'm following along with your report and I'm just wondering on the numbers, does that total number at the bottom mean that's the total number of enforcement cases we have? For the month? 11. So it'd be 11.
Yes, ma'am.
And so 5 complaints received are coming from the community? Is that how I'm reading it?
For this report, that is just from the code compliance, as far as code compliance officer, but we also have code compliance and fire.
Right. So this would be strictly from code compliance officer, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And so this position, full-time position?
Yes, it is.
And is this the only, is code compliance officer strictly following up on code compliance complaints, or is this something they're actively doing in the community?
Right now, for the last month and a half, he's been doing code compliance as far as complaints, as far as going out in the field, but he's also been assisting with emergency preparedness. So he is helping me with the FEMA paperwork.
So there's some job sharing in there as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Because when we're looking at the numbers, I know some items have come to my attention as well from other citizens, especially in Treasure Park, oversized RVs, things of that nature. And one of the things that comes up is I don't know if the community understands how they can file their complaint and if they can do them anonymously, because that's one of the barriers. People feel that they don't feel comfortable going through that process. Is there an anonymous way for citizens to file this complaint, or is it strictly a form online?
It's a form online, but on the form, it has a spot where if you want to be anonymous, that you can. So on our website, we have the code compliance complaint form. You can be anonymous or put your name. Also, we have the I forgot the name of the program, but it is, if you want to make any kind of complaint, you can also be anonymous, and we have a separate email just for that, to be able to put information in.
And for people that maybe aren't as tech savvy, is there a phone number they can call to do that?
The phone number is on there, but usually folks, yeah, everything. Be honest, you somehow always come to the police department one way.
Right.
People don't know where to go. They'll call the police department
Yeah,
and then we'll route it.
and I think another something that had come up also was the idea that neighbors don't want to confront their neighbors.
Mhm.
So if it's something obvious on the street, a lot of the pushback is, well, if it's on the street, doesn't code compliance see it? So that's what I'm trying to figure out in terms of educating myself and the community. What are these positions? What are they looking for? Is this something that, the citizens are gonna have to actively do themselves? Or is the goal to have that compliance officer actively in the community and doing that engagement piece?
No, that's an excellent question, and it kind of goes to the statement from our citizen. That was a question that was brought up at the community meeting, and we're trying to have more of those meetings. Be able to educate everyone is when they have a complaint on something, they can put that information in and they can be anonymous. But if it's complaints, say, the one that kind of came up was noise, barking dogs and so forth. We have to explain to people that you can make that complaint, but if you're not willing to sign or give information to it, dispatch will not make that a priority. Because by the time that we get there, if there's nothing going on, there's nothing for us to do. And I explained that at the meeting, People go, well, they had loud noise. Well, first of all, you can't disturb a police officer. So even the music is loud. We can't cite them for loud. We can tell them it needs to go down unless it goes for a certain distance. But other than that is, when we get there, sort of dog or party, it's not happening. People want us to go and cite them, go, well, we can't, but we can do a citizen's arrest. So it's one of those things, well, since it's in the Constitution, everyone has a right to confront their accuser. So, we tell them that we can't push out the Constitution. If someone did something, they have a right to confront their accuser. So if if you feel that you're being violated, then you have to speak up, or, we'll try to find means that we're not going to have a confrontation. That's the last thing we want. But we have limited resources, and a lot of people think, well, don't we see all these things? Well, the whole thing too is we have to prioritize. You talk about like a trailer. That could be an hour and a half or two, just going to the paperwork, waiting for a tow, if it is, but then we got to do the 72 hours. Some people see the trailer there, they think, can't you just take it right now? No, we have to follow the law. It's a 72-hour violation. So it's going to take about a week just to do that. And if someone just moves the vehicle 2 feet, they're within the law. And it's
Is that how
people who
ordinance
they get frustrated. Pardon me?
The ordinance I thought they had to be out of, if it's an oversized vehicle, a boat or a trailer, it has to be off the street after 72 hours. Is that not correct?
It has to be off the street as
Right.
far as, we talking about a motor vehicle.
I'm thinking
Okay,
of like a boat.
but like a trailer or
Yeah.
a boat, yes, it's supposed to be off the street,
Because
but
one of the complaints that I know came up several times was it gets tagged, but then it's still there, and the tag is still on it. So I think, like you said, that explains that piece of like the time frame that it may take longer to get it done. But I do think that there's a growing concern when you have those high visuals in those high visual areas like Flower. Several of the streets in Treasure Park are being impacted with ADUs, so you have increased parking. So now you have increased parking plus trailers, plus a boat, plus a work car. Well, you have residents that can't park in front of their own house anymore. So there's things like that are coming up. I think that's going to continue to be an issue coming up. So I just think it's a really good time for, especially myself, to educate on how these reports are generated, where the numbers are coming from. And like you mentioned, where the stuff is maybe being pulled, that typically may have time to do that as part of their job. So that's very helpful.
yeah, and we've had those situations where we've gotten a lot of complaints and we went into a neighborhood. And it's one of those things, being very straightforward, we then start citing. And the next thing you know, we get complaints from the person who made the complaint. But wait a minute, I wanted you to get them, not me. And we go, that's not how it works. So it's being really delicate.
Correct.
As
Yeah.
far as we try to work it to see what is the community really asking for? Instead of us just coming in and just doing things, we want to go and talk to people. What are you really looking for? And then how can we have a happy medium to get to where we really want to?
Definitely. And I think that the other piece to, like you mentioned, we want to make sure it's equitable. So I don't want one neighborhood getting constantly cleaned up because they have maybe people that are home and able to have the time to have the ability to fill a report out and follow up versus maybe another neighborhood where they're working, they get home late, there may be a language barrier, there may be a tech barrier. And yet that neighborhood doesn't get cleaned up because, unfortunately, there's a barrier to service or care there. So we want to make sure it's equitable as well. So I do feel like finding a balance between having stuff available to go out and follow up on those leads, and then also seeing what's going on and being aware of maybe the areas that need attention the most.
Definitely, we will push that to at least be more visible and hopefully be able to educate. And if we can do that through more community meetings, I think that'll be a
That'd be
real
really
plus.
great. Thank you so much for explaining that. I appreciate your time.
Yes, ma'am.
This has always been an issue.
Yeah.
And if you look at just a couple of items on that same page that Councilman Rizali was pointing out, 72-hour parking, there's only 2. And the other one, in the parking in the front yard, it's only 2. And I know that our police officers and the code enforcement just as busy as heck, especially after the FEMA stuff that's going on now. But it's, there's when you talk about a total of 11, there just seems to be a lack of enforcement. And again, we're looking at later on in the agenda, we've got officers that are lack of officers to be able to do these things. So I think somewhere down the line, we need to, and you bring up some good points, that what are the regulations? There's just like noise, for instance. There's a number that I call when there's noise around, loud noise. And I'll call and they'll ask, do you want to file, would you put your name down? I said, yeah, I will. And it kind of sets a tone that, that there needs to be some kind of vigilance in a way of how we're looking at these things, but it'll come up again. And we need to look at how do we, just like this, the lady that was speaking about the trailer there, there's a lot of issues that we need to deal with. And we wish, like Mr. Alvarez mentions, that we need 18 officers, but 18 officers is going to be $8 million. So thank you for that.
Thank you, and thank
your
you
comments,
for-
yeah.
For the comments.
Is there any other questions regarding this?
I think I look forward to that roadshow and maybe possibly having, when you go talk to the community, explaining how they can submit complaints. Would be, I think, resourceful. I think as it is, it's intimidating to talk to a police officer. My whole life, it's been very intimidating for myself. So that is a barrier that I had to break down, and I'm still trying to break that down. So for others, I would feel that they are intimidated. So it'd be amazing if maybe we can even connect with the Little House by the Park. If they already have a monthly meeting, maybe we just join them and have some fun, booths and talk to them, connect with our community.
Not a great idea.
Okay. Any more comments from the council? Is there a motion to approve 8H1C?
I motion to approve 8A1 statement.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All ayes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. City administrator's report.
Yesterday I had the pleasure of meeting with Councilmember Hernandez at the school to listen to the wonderful band play. They're amazing, and seeing the joy on those kids' faces was truly amazing. It was unbelievable. And then March 9th from 5:30 to 7:30 is the ribbon cutting for the Estabilo ribbon cutting at the Boys and Girls Club. That's all I have.
At Leeward Park. Yeah.
Yeah.
Clubhouse.
Clubhouse.
Any questions of the report? All right, item 10, Director of Public Safety, permission only.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Real quick, as far as police, yesterday we received a $15,000 check from the state for a grant to put together an officer wellness program. So we'll be getting with staff and we'll figure out how we're going to do that. They made it extremely vague, which will be very helpful in some build outs that we're trying to do. As far as the impact fees, I got a notice today that we'll be meeting in a couple of weeks to do a kickoff for the impact fee report. We're looking at that. I spoke with our fire department because I've been talking with state officials on trying to get a fire engine. That is an expensive piece of equipment. And we don't have the funds for that. But with this impact fee, I talked with fire, we're putting together a long-range plan of how we can do savings so that we'll be able to hopefully acquire one at least within a 5-year period. Friday, the EOC was activated via the rain. I hope everyone is on the Everbridge alert system. I try to get the information out. We started about 11 o'clock and we shut down at 8. We brought in one strike team as far as a fire captain and a fire engineer. They went around town and they helped to clear a couple of gutters so that we had the water to go through. And then they also, I saw it on Facebook later on, we had some down trees and they went out and cut the trees and so forth. So having that kind of kept things going in the community, and that worked out very well. Unfortunately, get up to 3 o'clock in the morning because of staffing, but the officers and everyone really stuck together. As far as emergency preparedness, I received notice today from FEMA that they want to meet tomorrow or Thursday to start the process for the public assistance months for us to get the funds to be reimbursed. But we already had talked with the state. We had our management staff there. When we talked with the state, they let us know to put FEMA on hold to push back. So we make sure that we have all our paperwork and they're going to help us through this process. So it's going to be a long process. There's an awful lot of paperwork to kind of do. And but everyone on the staff has worked very well together. And for the staff, I appreciate everyone has submitted their after action reports. This was a bigger task than what I thought, because I'm trying to put a historical perspective on this since we've had floods in the past. And the only way that we get better is learning from what happened in the past, how we can do better for the future. So I have everything. It's just a matter of kind of putting that together. So that is my report. If there's any questions.
Just a comment, Superintendent Handel sent forwarded a letter that we received from the county regarding having a place to meet here with FEMA and all the players. And the last information I got is that they're working on it. I don't know if they connected with us, wanted to have a local place here. They said that they possibly have another area to locate. Do you know anything about
I believe the last thing they said is they already confirmed another
Okay.
spot, not here.
here or not?
No,
here?
not here.
Well, that doesn't do much good, but so be it. Okay,
I have a
Go ahead.
question for Chief.
yes, sir.
Yes, Chief, I know that we've been in the downtown corridor have a continued rash of vandalism. And most recently within, I believe, a week. Do we have any updates to the post office and whatnot?
We haven't had a broken window for a while. We know who the gentleman is. He was arrested for it. He was the gentleman that was shot outside of town and came in. He went to the hospital. Unfortunately, he was released. He is a resident. And so right now, I'm speaking with the owner of their renters. So I'm speaking with the owner of the property and to advise him, this person is a nuisance. And that we could also seek civil penalties, if not only if he continues, but if he's going to have this happen, and that's his property. So we're trying to use all means possible to hopefully have this family move along.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Council good? All right. We'll go to item 11, public hearing, Measure A, local program of projects. Shannon.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. The recommendation is that City Council adopt this resolution that approves the 5-year Measure A local program of projects for the city of Guadalupe. Back in 2008, voters passed the very long named thing that is actually called Measure A. And it provides the city of Guadalupe over $500,000 a year for doing road maintenance. And in order for us to continue receiving these funds, we're required to submit a spreadsheet to SBCAG on an annual basis showing how we're going to be spending that money. That is located as attachment in your staff report. And if you have any questions on that spreadsheet, it's somewhat difficult to read, and I'm happy to explain any of the numbers that are in there. But this shows how we intend on spending the money. In accepting this, city council certifies that will include something called maintenance of effort, which is a little bit of money that the city provides from general fund to show, our commitment to streets. It ends up being about $300,000 over the course of 5 years. It's about $60,000 a year. There are 4 different funds that are used for paying for street maintenance and street work, including the gas tax, SB1, which is state development impact fees, and then Measure A funds. We put a plan together in 2019 that identifies all the streets in the city. And that 2019 pavement maintenance program has been identifying the work that gets done on an annual basis. For the last 3 years, I've been really fortunate in that it didn't rain during the winter. And so I've been designing in the summer and doing work in the winter. That was really successful for 3 years. And then this year happened. I started the paving job back, I think, the beginning of December. I don't think we're gonna have it finished until April because of all the rain. So what I'm advocating for this year is that we don't actually pave anything in fiscal year 2024. Instead, what we do is we design in 2024, go out to bid for the summer, basically get off the cycle that we've been on for the last 3 years and shift it. So the work that'll be done in this upcoming fiscal year will be design work that will then go out to bid at the end of the fiscal year, beginning of next fiscal year. There are 5 streets that I probably don't even have to tell you what streets they are that need the work. They're Obispo, south of 9th Street, West Main, west of Guadalupe, and then 10th, 11th, and 12th are the streets that are going to need attention. The project that I'm working on this year is a $1.5 million project, and it really depleted the funds, the cash balance that was in those 4 funds. So taking a fiscal year to do design work and no paving work will provide us the opportunity to build up some of those funds. The work that needs to be done on the 5 streets that I just listed is massive rehabilitation. We're not talking about a simple slurry. It's going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars a street for us to do that. So not only is it good for us to get off the cycle of doing work in winter, it's also good for us to build up some funds so that we can do those projects, the rehab that needs to be done on them. Measure A also requires the city spend at least 5% of Measure A money on what's called alternative transportation expenditures, things such as bicycle, pedestrian, and transit projects. Because we've been doing rehabilitation, one of the requirements when you rehabilitate a street is you have to bring up all the curbs to ADA standards. And if you ever wondered why curbs that looked perfectly fine are getting torn up and redone, it's because if they're not up to current standards, they have to be brought up to that. And so we've been doing rehab, so we've been doing enough curbs in order for us to meet this 5% requirement. So I'm asking that you approve this spreadsheet that I can then send out to SDCAG that identifies how we'll spend our streets money for the next 5 years. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Before I open up to the public, is there comments from the council?
Did you mention West Main Street?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I'm very excited for that because for some reason, people are now merging, they're going in the middle of the roads and coming on incoming traffic.
It's dangerous.
Yes, now,
That has never happened to me. It's like playing chicken and it's kind of sad, like, it's like, come on, stop, and so I'm very
Yeah.
excited for this.
if it weren't for the rain, that there would already be a center line down that road. The current project includes a center line for both West Main and as per city council's request, Obispo Street, south of 9th Street. So, like I said, if we were finished with our paving project, center lines would exist on both of those roads. We just have to wait for the rain to stop. So hopefully that will add to some safety while we wait for the funds to build up again to do the rehabilitation. Thank you.
You mentioned that you want to do designing. Can we prioritize what roads need to be looked at right away? Because West Main Street went out right by the cemetery. That's really bad. You see big old cracks, potholes starting to form. That'd be something that I would wish we don't push to the side and try to at least get some roads that might really need that kind of work done right away. Looked at, because I understand where you're coming from, the amount of money, because it's a complete redo.
So I had a thought coming into work this morning as I travel on 11th Street and noticed the same thing. There's a line of potholes. And there's something called a dig out. And what a dig out is where you identify an area that has very bad conditions. And you simply dig out that portion and then you put in 4 inches of asphalt over base. Dig outs don't require that the curbs get done. We have a contractor on track now. As long as I don't go over that 15% contingency that you granted me, I'm at 4% right now, but who knows, time will tell on this project. I might, because I'm concerned as well, especially with these rains. I might see if the contractor would be willing to do some dig outs in our particularly egregious streets. One of them being 11th, one of them being West Main. So, yeah, that thought crossed my mind, and that might be our most expedient way to make that happen. So, let me work towards figuring out how to make that happen.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
And Shannon, what Christina brought up as far as the striping of Main Street and the dangerous situation that it is in right now, were you saying that it would be striped as is, or would we get at the potholes, or was that, I know that's a big project, but that's what you want to put in the future?
Okay, rehabilitating the entire street is in the pavement maintenance program, the whole street. The center line is part of this project. It was already bid. It's already in the base amount that council approved. The dig outs per Councilman Costa's request is something that is extra. And I have some contingency, and as long as I don't spend it all, or the contractor doesn't figure out how to spend it all, then it is something I could request to get the more dangerous pothole areas and West Main, along with 11, and probably some other areas as well, might be areas that we can target as part of our existing contract. But it's extra work. It wasn't in the base bid. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and do you know anything about, I believe the West Main towards the past O'Connell Park is closed currently?
Mhm.
Do you know about that?
I know it's closed. I know it's a county road.
Right,
Unfortunately, I don't know much more than that.
and any update on the access to Guadalupe Beach?
No, I would have to look into that.
And at the RERC meeting, they actually said that they're working on getting it open, I think, this next week, I think. I know that his priority, they were saying, was to have the foot trail open, but I think he did say that there is gonna be,
Road access.
vehicle access in the next, I think, 2 weeks.
Good point. Any more questions from the council? So at 6:59, open up the public for public comment. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to comment on this particular item or have questions? On item 11. I see none. So at 11:59 plus, the public hearing is closed. Is there a motion to approve resolution 2023-13?
I motion to approve resolution 2023-13.
All second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Yes, Councilmember Custis Junior,
Aye.
Councilmember Hernandez,
Aye.
Councilmember Lizaldi,
Aye.
Councilmember Robles,
Aye.
Mayor Julian.
Aye. Motion, resolution passes.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Shannon.
So we'll go to item 12, mid-year review and council adopted goals and FY 2022 budget. Mr. Brock.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'll address you from here and hopefully Hannah will give me a hand with the slide presentation. Anyway, to begin with, both Janice Davis, the new finance director, and I are very pleased to be able to provide you with this mid-year review of both the goals and financial review of the major funds at this point in the fiscal year. As you all know, in June of last year, the council adopted both the city goal statement as well as the budget. And by way of introduction, the council in the goal statement ranked its priorities. The priorities were to be used to guide the budget's implementation. And the budget was then adopted as a major financial plan, typical of most cities. And that plan, I must say, is a living document. It changes as you go along. It'll change throughout the course of the year. But it guides your programs and their implementation. Tonight, what I'll do is review with you the goal progress because I think that's important. It's important to check in where the city goals were at the beginning of the budget, what kind of progress has been made, and in essence, where there has been limited progress and maybe a bit of a discussion as to why. Following the review of the goals, we'll then proceed to the review of the major funds within the city and recommendations for bringing back resolutions that essentially will adjust the budget. As we go through this report, it should be interactive in that way. Please feel free to ask me questions, comment, as you see fit. So we'll proceed now with the goal progress, and you have up there the first couple of goals. The interesting thing about the way you adopted the goals, or there was this number one goal followed by 1A, 1B, 1C, and 1D, if I'm not mistaken. And that was because those subsequent goals were just about as important as the first one, but you really wanted to make this one stand out. And this one is really a key one. It's to develop and maintain a balanced budget for 22-23, providing priority municipal services and securing the city's financial future with adequate reserve funds. So far at mid-year, I must say, and I'm pleased to indicate to you that the general fund and enterprise funds remain balanced. I also think it's important to note that the general fund reserve has grown to $764,505. This is a moderate increase over last year. The important thing to note here, however, is this figure is unaudited at this time. The audit is in the middle of being completed as we speak, and hopefully we'll have that before you later in March. So that this amount might fluctuate as a result of the completion of the audit. I will say that the council placed the ballot initiative regarding the transient occupancy tax increase. And although that came very close, it actually failed at the ballot box. Fortunately for the city had not included or anticipated any revenue coming directly from that ballot initiative within the budget. I will also note that the implementation of the sophomore program is expected to be completed actually during the current quarter of the fiscal year. This conversion has not been without its difficulty. This is actually converting the old municipal operational method or program of budget review and it's a software program that records all of our financial transactions. It's way out of date. When I retired from the city of Grover Beach, they had just gotten through, and this was back in 2016, a similar conversion program. What you can expect out of the Tyler system will be a much more efficient financial system that will give you better reporting access and make it easier for staff. And actually, it will make it easier for us to transact business with the general public. I must say that the conversion has been somewhat difficult, and that's resulted in limiting public service in terms of utility billing window. The hours have been limited in the last few weeks. The major reason for this is that each of the staff members are having to conduct their own jobs, which accounts payable, receivable, utilities, all of that, while at the same time they're in training. And training is like learning a new language. It's not easy. I'm going to ask you, I know it's an inconvenience, but bear with us for the next couple of weeks as we try and get the conversion completed. The next item is the 1A, which was to continue to develop and grow a recreation department by providing sustainable programs and facilities to the community. I think this is a highlight. I think you're seeing some real progress here. And as noted, work on the master plan for park improvement and maintenance is underway. And a number of recreational programs has increased significantly, increasing overall general service to the public. Staff is working very hard to establish partnerships with other agencies and organizations. And I think this is, I'll do a shout out to your Parks and Rec director, because I think from my observation, she's really doing a great job of moving these programs forward. If we can go to the next slide. We'll note that the next one is 1B. Ensure public safety staffing and facilities are sufficient to maintain the delivery of quality public services to the community. And I know that later we'll be discussing this in a bit more detail. A staffing plan has been completed for both fire and police, but implementation has been limited due to ongoing budget constraints. Unfortunately, the budget is what it is and hasn't allowed much in room for flexibility. And the same is true to continue to update facilities and equipment. This has also been limited. You heard the fire chief, the public safety chief talk about a fire engine and the need to replace it. Those are very, very, very costly. Staff continues to pursue grant and funding opportunities. 1C is to ensure that public facilities and infrastructure, streets, water, wastewater are capable of meeting the current and future needs to the city. Again, I think the Public Works Director has also done an exceptional job in moving this area forward, given the limitations that she deals with. Public Works has hired a consultant to complete the wastewater master plan, so that is underway. Capital projects underway or to be completed in this fiscal year include the West Main water line, the effluent pump replacement project, in the 2022 pavement rehabilitation project, and you've kind of heard what some of the limitations are with that. The highway lift station project will be awarded next month. Moving on to 1D, ensure American recovery and retrieval funds are maximized. ARPA, it continues to be an important part of the city's budget. We noted in the general fund that there's about $670,000 that is going directly to support a lot of general fund projects within the city. But there are also some public works projects as well, and that chart is actually included as the last page in the report. Some of the things that we've been implementing, improvements to the City Hall auditorium have been completed. And ARPA funds are being used to support recreational programs. And the City Hall roofing project continues to move forward. The next is actually a number 2 after we've gone through all the number 1 priorities. It's create and implement an economic development strategy for the city. As noted, the city is working cooperatively with the Business Association on several initiatives. I know the sign ordinance update was reviewed by the association. And actually, the vacant building ordinance was also reviewed by the association. The city is seeking grant options to fund the strategy. That still has not taken place. Progress is being made on the Central Park improvements, as we saw, I think, at the last meeting or two. And that will actually improve the whole center of the community. And then the ordinance has been introduced to address vacant buildings from including or primarily based on health and safety concerns. A lot of these are in the downtown area. Number 3 is actually support the efforts to attract businesses to the Pasadena commercial area. This has always been a challenge and will continue to be. One of the things that the council pointed out was the city actually needs to develop a council staff team that support the development of the area. I don't think that the actual team itself, although council and staff have been very advocating in terms of supporting the improvements of infrastructure that needs to take place in that area. But it's something that council may still want to consider as the actual formulation of that team. As I noted, the city continues to advocate with Caltrans and other agencies for infrastructure improvements. And the city is working with a developer and railroad to facilitate the railroad overcrossing solution. This, as you all know, is limiting the ability of Pasadena to start new housing, and new housing is essentially necessary to eventually attract businesses. You've got to continue to build the base. Number 4 is coordinate with the Santa Barbara Parks to acquire property near Guadalupe for recreational purposes. I don't think that there's been much progress in this area, or at least none that I was able to note. And number 5 is develop and implement communication strategy to improve the flow of information between, the city and the community. Certainly there's more progress that's needed here. And the strategy has yet to be developed, but there has been some progress worth noting. Public safety continues to emphasize, as we just heard, the use of the Everbridge program for release of emergency information. And probably the most significant thing that is underway in this area is that actually, with the use of ARPA funds, the city is working to upgrade the website, which I think, once that is completed, it'll be a much more, user friendly. Any questions about the goals?
I do have a comment regarding, if you go back,
To which one?
let's say the one,
Which area?
no, I'm sorry, the one before the, on, regarding,
What number?
oh. I can't see it. It's 5, no, slide number 5. On the plus of the other side, there's been, and I think we need to, actually get this team.
Keep going. Also, I'm gonna stop. You're gonna put 3, there you go, right
No,
there.
that one, the commercial area. There's been quite a bit of chatter regarding some businesses that are interested in coming forward on an informal basis, and I know that Craig Smith would want a more beefy type of group to get together to talk about what they can do. And in talking with staff regarding the Santa Maria Valley Railroad, the construction, if everything, even this building, the city was gonna build, they had money, or they were proposed to build a new city building in the new development. And instead of that, we said, let's take some of that money up to 3 million to actually repair this building. And in order to do that, you have to sell a home. And you have to have an occupancy on that home. And if we have another 340 homes that are going on the south side of Santa Maria Valley Railroad, if we don't move on the commercial side of things, which brings jobs and also sales tax, and don't get together as a team to see how everything interplays with this building and the whole city, I think that we need to tag this to say, this is what we need to do, get together and have a staff and some commercial interests that have been knocking on the doors trying to get something going. So that's just my comment, but we just need to move forward on it, because that's really, if we don't do something with that, the commercial 18 acres of commercial, we're going to, we're just gonna not stagnate, but it's hard to move forward if we don't have that going. So thank you for bringing that up.
Any other questions regarding the goals? Okay, moving along to the general fund, by way a couple of summary comments before we begin going over the specifics in the review. As council is aware, the general fund is the main operating budget for the city. And as it was adopted in June, the budget was balanced. It was balanced with revenues at $6,931,513, and expenditures were identified as $6,931,097. So it was balanced. As at this time in the year, actually, when looking at the revenues and the expenditures, we used both December 31st and January 31st figures, since they were available to us. And so what that means is that 58% of the year was completed. And as of January 31st, 2023, you'll see this slight expenditure revenue imbalance. I want to assure you that that's not uncommon for this time in the fiscal year, and that's true of most cities. Again, the reason for that is property tax and sales tax are received later in the year. You don't get we have now received our first sort of slug of property tax that came through in December. But we won't have our full property tax increments paid off until possibly April. So that's still coming in. And the same is true with sales tax. Sales tax typically runs a quarter at least a quarter behind in your actual receipt of revenue. But I'm expecting that will, throughout the remainder of the year, correct itself. And as you'll see in the following pages, that will actually, we're projected at this point to end with a balanced budget. That's because I think if you look at the next slide and we go a little bit more in detail, the revenues seem in general to be holding up. Talk a little bit about them, and specifically you'll see that as I noted earlier, you have the total of $6,931,513, which was the adopted amount. What we really expect to happen is at $6,842,264. That's only 89,000. You know, I say only 89,000. In prior years, it's been, I can guarantee you, it's been more than that. So at least this is moving in the right direction.
And I know that Bob always looks on the conservative side of the revenue, so it's, you know.
It's potentially good, yes, that's very true. We still got, 5 months to go in terms of activity, so there are still changes that can take place. But if we go to the next slide, sales tax and local tax projected are slightly higher. So I'm estimating an additional 20,000 in the sales and use tax line item and 20,751 in the local tax item. And, I think that's largely to the fuel costs have continued to be up. They go down and they go back up, but generally they're more up than they are down. And that also actually creates a little bit of a sales tax benefit for us. I expect property tax projections are going to be consistent with original estimates. And again, that is our single most largest revenue item at 1.6 million. Yes, the real estate market is softening and it'll eventually have its impact. But according to the property tax advisors that we consult with, it's interesting. The Guadalupe's home values are still slightly higher than last year, about 3%, which is a good thing. Now that's expected to level off next year. So staff is estimating some consistency here. Property transfer tax is estimated at $35,000 or $5,000 in the original $30,000 estimate. And the reason for that is simply real estate continues to change hands. Right now, as of the seventh month, we're right at $30,000. So the estimate with an additional 5,000 is a conservative one. Building and permit activity, it's interesting, remains strong. The budget actually dropped its estimate from last year, if you remember, because Pasadena was going stronger than it obviously is this year. And so the budget contemplated that downturn from Pasadena. But what's interesting is you're still seeing a lot of construction occurring, as you probably all know. There's been ADU activity. Escalante Meadows is expected to come through the permit process in the last 7 months. So right now, we're very close to in revenues received at the projected $120,000, or it was $104,000 in the original budget line item. So we're projecting an additional $25,000 higher than the budget estimate. And this may be conservative, it could go higher, and that's the good news. Cannabis revenue, unfortunately, has been eliminated from the revenue projection. That's due to the slow starts of the cannabis business. We don't expect to see any real revenue completed before the end of the fiscal year. We're likely to see it in the next fiscal year. And we're all obviously all hopeful about that. A little disappointing as well is the revenue that the general fund had depended upon from the school resource officer program. Unfortunately, the officer that was with that program was injured and is out on long-term disability. And consequently, with the staffing issues we had, we just have not been able to place somebody in that position. I think it's important to note that ARPA, as I've said, continues to significantly increase to the general fund. It comes in and it's funding expenditures in the various different line items within the city. But it's something to keep in mind as you progress towards your next budget cycles. The overall ARPA funding, which was the federal stimulus contribution to the city, if I remember correctly, it was 1.8 million all total. And you've been using about 600,000 a year. You have until 2024 to use that money, and you have essentially a remaining 600,000, but by that time, it will disappear from the revenue sheet. So there's something to keep in mind. As I noted, 89,000 under estimate. Now, if we can take a look at expenditures. Overall, I've got to say, managers are, as you can see here, are doing a good job of managing their budgets. By and large, with few exceptions, they're very close to budget or slightly under. I will say that as you look at this list of departments, the biggest expenditures are obviously at this point public safety. The police department, the 2.9 million is roughly 42% of the budget, and fire at 1.2, it's roughly 18% of the budget. So essentially 60% of your current general fund is going to safety services. The council, admin, city attorney, finance, and non-departmental, which you could look at as more or less general admin and support, is about 26%. And your remaining departments, which includes building maintenance, parks and rec, and building and planning, are about 14% of the entire budget. In terms of what I see as where expenditures at, and if we can go to the next slide, this is kind of hard to read, and I apologize for that. The deviations, the city council the workers' compensation charges for the city council department were budgeted at $500 when they actually came in at about $1,591. The projected cost for the city and council includes also sufficient funds to send 2 of the council members to a League California Summit meeting in April in Sacramento. I would really encourage the council to take advantage of that. It's a great learning opportunity. That will require that the budget be adjusted to 15, as noted here, to 15,730. The next one I want to call out is building maintenance. There has been significant city administration, I'll just say, is down about $20,000. That's largely the savings in personnel and area. And so the administration will be down to 487 and change. Building maintenance will not use the majority of, won't use all of its budget. It's actually going to be a bit down. That's because there has been some difficulty in bringing on the building maintenance person. And so there's been some cost savings that are associated with that. I expect that we'll probably fill that position and also increase professional services expenditures through the remainder of the year, but we'll still be under expended by about $85,000 in that area. That brings me to the police department. The police department original budget, as we've talked about, it was 2.9 million. When you take a look at the first 7 months, the first 7 months of, as I've indicated, represent 58% of the calendar year. But actually, the overall budget at that as of January 31st was about 51%, and that means that it's roughly at that point about 7% under expended. The salary savings, because there are a couple of open positions, are contributing to this under expenditure at this time. But it's being mitigated because of the overtime costs. The overtime line item is at 226, and that'll likely be exceeded by year end. I'm projecting that that'll come in at about $260,000. The couple of things about the staffing. At the present time, there's been a lot of talk about that, and I know the chief will get into it in a little bit more detail. But yes, you've got 3 officers that are currently on duty and available to respond, as he indicated in his report. I will note that there are some positive things happening. One, you actually have 3 openings budgeted and are in the process of being filled. One of those, I think it came on within the last week or so. And so that leaves 2 openings budgeted that can be filled in, provided the candidates are available for the remainder of the fiscal year. One of those positions is the result of an officer who has resigned, retired, a longtime officer, and he's getting a payout of $26,000. That's the benefits that is owed him after the long time of service. And so that has to be calculated back in on the expenditure level for the budget. So at this particular point, having said all of that, it's finance department's estimate is that we'll be at 2,879,260 by the end of the year, which is actually 26,000 under budget, roughly. We'll see what happens, and we'll see how that continues to work itself out. The fire department, the approved budget amounted for the fire department is 1,264,000. Overtime was budgeted at 123,800. As of January 31st, this line item was slightly exceeded. The finance staff projects year-end expenditures for overtime will be about 163,300. And staff is recommending that there be an adjustment to this budget using some of the savings that we're seeing from other areas. I will note in terms of the overtime, you know, you gotta take a look at it from a large view. In that last year at year end, overtime was at $280,000. So there has been progress made. Is it on budget? No. But just to give you an indication of what that looks like. Before we go on to storm-related costs, are there any questions regarding the information I provided you on the general fund?
I'm good. Any questions?
Okay, Fund 4 is storm-related costs. With the declaration on actually January, emergency declaration, January 10th, we established Fund 4, which is which was to capture all of the storm-related costs. And to the best of our ability, this is a listing of them to date. It's not to say that this is going to stay static. It could grow, quite honestly. We're still seeing some impacts. But a large part of these are general fund related impacts. Obviously the Pioneer Street Apartments at $52,820, which is a bit lower than the actual contract amount because people moved out in a more timely fashion. I hope that we get the $7,000 deposit back. And we'll certainly pursue that because hopefully those units were all left in good shape. There was some waste management, debris removal. Miscellaneous costs of $200 were for basic equipment during the night of the event. Leroy Park cleanup is estimated at about $84,000. So the general fund impact right now looks like about $150,000. Low pres construction cleanup of various streets is listed at $6,580. But street funds will handle this and it won't be a direct impact to the general fund.
Problem on the deposit. There's not a problem. As soon as the manager received payment, they were going to release that. And he actually mentioned that there was 11 units that were actually used, and they're all really cleaned up really well.
Good.
And what happens, the beds are on it in terms of H2A requirements, in terms of cleanliness. And the the manager was very pleased on how it was left, so I should be getting that back pretty quick.
Well, and that'll be great. And I know we've already received the invoice and I believe we're processing it if it hasn't been already processed. So these costs are potentially subject to reimbursement. You know, we don't know for sure until the process the chief has talked about is complete. So we need to find a way to fund those costs, at least on the short term. Yes.
On this project, this is gonna be basically lowering the reserve fund.
Yes, and I'll get to that.
Okay.
Yeah. So, if we can get to the next slide, this is to kind of wrap up the general fund recommendations. It is recommended that staff be directed to return with a resolution incorporating changes to department budgets based on projections combined in the report. It is also recommended that the council direct staff to appropriate $150,000 in general fund reserves to be used to cover storm-related costs in Fund 4 that are related to general fund costs. The impact that I've noted here is that this appropriation would lower the general fund reserve from the 764,505 to 614,505. I know that that's a difficult one to swallow. Nobody wants to take a step backward. But you know, at least the good thing is we have the reserves there. Reserves are actually the reason you have reserves is to take care of unanticipated events, which certainly the storm was. Any questions about those recommendations?
I had a question.
Yeah,
Depending on the delay from, if we get approved, again, it's an unknown variable. When those funds are received and processed, will there be any issue moving those back to general fund? Those will transfer just because
Right.
those were documented.
right.
Reasons, correct?
Right. In fact, they'll go right back into reserves.
Right.
Whatever reimbursement we receive won't just be lost in the general fund per se, but will
Right.
go back to reserves.
Reserves, okay, great, that was my.
So hopefully it will restore those levels. Okay, talking about the enterprise funds, briefly. As you'll notice, I got to say, all of our enterprise funds are expected to be balanced throughout the year. And this is just a note as to where we are at mid-year. But the projections pretty much will be online with the end of the year, both in, water, wastewater. I didn't include streets here, but the same is true of that as well. There are some recommendations which we're wanting to make for budget adjustments. And that's on the next slide. State water project. $80,000 is due to the increase in water allocation that will actually be receiving over and above what was originally estimated in the budget. We need to add $20,000 for an increase in regulatory agency fees. And these will come out of each of the individual enterprise funds. Operating supplies and expenses, $10,000 for increased maintenance needs at the wastewater plant. Equipment rental is higher than expected due to the older rolling stock. $30,000 to cut back vegetation. $24,000 to pay for street light utilities. And utilities adds $33,000 for increased expenses associated with electricity. Just have seen that go up. So these are actually adjustments that are being recommended or as a result of doing business. That's essentially what it is. With that concludes my staff report. I am available for any questions or comments that you or the public might have.
I had a comment regarding, the report and also on the ARPA money and how that's gonna be divvied up or how it was in the council's past, how that was scheduled. And my concern is that there's been some movement in some of the money that was allocated, and there may be changes. So I we have a resolution before us to where we're moving forward on this, but I given that we have two new individuals on how we came up with how we're going to expend those ARPA funds, I would want the new individuals to my left and right to be able to look at that and say, why is this here?
You know, one of the things, and maybe Shannon, some of those changes occurred. There were a couple of projects. You just want to go over why, and I'll indicate that the changes are comparatively minimal there. I think the original budget was $659 to the general fund projects, and the revised is about 670, but there were a couple of things that didn't get done. Is that the case, or?
Right, I think, there were some adjustments that were brought to council's attention and with council's approval. There was some funding that was allocated for changes here at City Hall, including renovating the restrooms and that sort of thing. Some of those funds got moved around, again, with council's approval. I'm going to give numbers, but they're in the ballpark. So $165,000 will go to paving the west parking lot at Leroy Park. $265,000 will go for the roof replacement here. $10,000 will go for a gate at O'Connell Park. On the spot, I can't remember the other ones, but one of them was the painting of the outside of City Hall, which the only reason why that hasn't been done yet is because if it rains, we want to get the roof on first. So
Was the rain,
my bad for doing those in the wrong order.
was the rains that were happening, right?
So those funds got adjusted in that way in order to take into account higher priority projects.
What I can do is when I come back, which I expect to do at the next meeting, what I'll do is include just a real specific chart of what those were, what those changes are.
That would perfect.
Thank you.
Any questions, Bob? Yes. Are we looking at a resolution?
No, I'll bring that back next time.
Okay, all right.
I'm just asking that the council by consensus give me direction to make the changes.
Very good report.
Thank you.
Sorry you had to stand up the whole time.
Hey.
No problem.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Okay,
So I think you want us to make the changes today
what's that?
to recommend stuff.
No, they're gonna go forward.
I think there's been a consensus of the council,
Yes.
so
Okay,
It'll be a clean.
having here no objections, so
okay. Wasn't sure if it needed to be formal.
yes, you're,
Thank you for asking.
thank you for, yeah.
Okay, we moved item 14 to 13, request for funding for recruitment and hiring of 2 police officers and one police sergeant and emergency preparedness coordinator, Mr. Cash, Public Safety Director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council, staff, and our citizens. I'm not going to read directly from the report. It's long.
It's only 7 pages.
And I appreciate our city attorney.
You can tell I helped.
Yeah, a lot of legalese in here. But let me start off with just giving an overall view of where we were, where we're at, and what we're trying to get to. In here, the recommendation that city council approved for the recruitment and hiring of 2 police officers, 1 police sergeant, and emergency preparedness coordinator for the Guadalupe Department of Public Safety. I want this.
It's rain.
Yeah, I'd like this portion to be about public safety. A lot of times we try to get pulled different ways, fire, police, it's public safety. And I think that is something that we look at. Is something that is specific to Guadalupe for our needs. When we had the storm, it was public safety, so it's not a matter of one or the other. When I first got here, and the mayor was on my board, it was full staffing, 3 fire personnel, we had 3 captains, and we had 11 officers, 2 agents, corporals, and 1 sergeant and 1 chief. That was full staffing. But then we had 4 officers that would leave within 2 months that I got here for higher paying positions. What I did then do was take one position from the police department and I transferred that to public safety. I transferred that to the fire department, and that established 3 fire engineers. So we increased fire department 100% staffing from doing that. And I appreciated the position I was given as a director of public safety. I was able to utilize funds to go back and forth to assist both departments. At one time prior to my predecessor, we had a fire chief. We had several fire chiefs. And to understand where we came from is we only had a volunteer fire department, which our Mayor Pro Tem definitely remembers. Then we had 3. We've upped that now to 6 full-time fire personnel. As far as on the police department, we only had 1 manager, that was the chief. We now have a lieutenant who can assist with managing public safety. We have the sergeant, and we've had 10 officers, but we've also included 2 airport officers, which are contracts, and that brings in additional revenue. Being able to leverage both sides, we were able to improve the fire department. I was here when we had a fire chief, and I was sitting with a captain and fire chief. He told me he's been here for 20 years. He's been trying to improve the fire department as far as they didn't have a kitchen, sleeping quarters or anything. The council, we went to council, the council appropriated money that we'd be able to build a kitchen onto the fire department. With that, we improved their sleeping quarters. With that, we improved sleeping quarters for the police department. That keeps our public safety resources here in town for a longer period of time for when we have these type of emergencies. With that, we're able to leverage grants. We've gotten pretty much most of the equipment fire has asked for, but the grants we now have were coming. Our first generator that'll be connected to one of our city buildings that we've never had. We had a power outage yesterday. It was yesterday, in the building. Your whole city shuts down. And, you know, how does that work for our citizens? So with at least something that coming online is going to be able to help with our power needs. That was from a grant. We just, and with the fire captains, we've succeeded in getting several other grants. So leveraging both together, we have grown to be able to provide services as the city has grown. The flip side of that is with that, there's other cities who have their needs for public safety, fire and police, and they offer a lot more. And so it's hard competition to keep what we have for one, you know, recruiting, we can go out and recruit, but then we also got to keep the people that we have. We're now down to 3 officers. And when we say 3, that's not all at one time. That's 3, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day for 2 different shifts. So what happens is Lieutenant and I also do patrol. That is not really sustainable. We talked last time about having at least being budgeted for 8. Well, we didn't include the 2 that were long-term disability at this time. So I gave 6. And then we've just had 3. We just had 1 leave last week. And we just got a brand new trainee. Matter of fact, he starts tomorrow. Unfortunately, that's going to be at least 8 to 12 months. What do you think?
Starts tomorrow?
Or here tonight. Or she was supposed to be sworn in, but I think.
Oh, no, he's coming to start it. He's
Okay.
town tomorrow. Don't scare me like that.
I haven't seen the kid yet, but that's gonna be at least 8 months before that person's out in the street and being assistant. What we're looking for is being able to go out and to recruit and stay ahead of the game to be able to, so that we can keep our staffing up. Having these other 2 positions budgeted, we're not gonna be able to fill those this fiscal year. So that's not gonna hit us, but at least knowing that we can talk about trying to fill those in the future gives us an opportunity to go out to recruit. We talked about recruit people, well, why don't you just go out and recruit now? Well, if you don't have a job to give them, no one's gonna listen to the recruit. On the aspect of the emergency preparedness, I think there's a lot of misinformation that kind of goes around. We've had that here at times, as you know, and I appreciate groups wanting certain positions they feel that it's needed. What I have to look at is that's the task that you gave me. People talk about, well, how can we have a fire chief? They can do emergency preparedness. That's not correct. I'm part of the Police Chiefs Association of Santa Barbara County. I'm part of the Fire Chiefs Association for Santa Barbara County. Not one police chief does emergency preparedness. Not one fire chief does emergency preparedness. I've been doing emergency preparedness for 23 years. I work at, and as you know, and that was one of my points of my interview, is not only national, but international. I train how to put together emergency trainings for cities, colleges, and businesses so they can operate. What they're looking at from that perspective, from emergency preparedness, for a fire chief is running the operation of what's going on out in the street. We call that an incident commander. They're just responding to what, if it's a flood, what resources do I send to the flood to deal with that, or a fire? What our emergency preparedness was doing here is putting together training for our citizens. I had lunch with a citizen yesterday. She was asking, when can we have training? I said, as soon as I can get a body. I need somebody who understands how to do training. That training go from 1 to 2 or 3 trainings within a week. Fire chief does not have time to do trainings, going to people's homes and community groups and do that job. That's a full-time job. We put together an emergency operations center in this building. And I brought this out to others. We've had chiefs before. How come they weren't doing emergency preparedness then? We had chiefs before. How come they weren't putting together an emergency operations center? It's convenient now, but it's not realistic. We need somebody who has the training and expertise to do the training, day-to-day training, telling people how to put together emergency backpacks, where to go to buy those things. That is boots on the ground, holding people's hands and doing those kind of things. That's not a fire chief. That's not a police chief. Right now, I have 4 emergency preparedness people I've trained. One's up in northern Sacramento, one's Orange County, one's in LA, and one's down by San Diego. We were lucky enough here when we had the incident, the flooding. We had our mobile command trailer here. The mayor got to meet from Santa Barbara County. They came here. Those civilians, that's not fire personnel. Santa Maria Fire Department, they have a civilian who handles emergency preparedness. That's not a sworn personnel. That's a cost factor to have a sworn personnel. You need somebody to do that. I teach at the Emergency Preparedness Academy in Maryland, so I know what is needed and how to do the grants. So we need somebody who's specific to that. So that's why I really push for the emergency preparedness person. It's a civilian who can do that job and not paying at an exorbitant rate for someone who will not be able to do that job. Those are 2 completely different things. So in closing, I'd like to say is that we need, as far as these resources, thinking long-term, working with finance to see how we can make this work, knowing that this is a long-term goal to get our police department where it should be. We're 100% staffing in the fire department. For the report, national average is 1.5 police officers per 1,000 residents. California, right now, they have 2.5 police officers per 1,000 residents. If we had the 1.5, that would be 13 officers, but that does not fit Guadalupe. But what we have right now, we're at 0.4 officers per 1,000 residents. We need to put together a plan, and I'm looking for the council to help give us direction so that we could look to not only hire, but keep police officers here in the city. I think everyone on this dais has had the opportunity to meet several of our police officers. And especially when you got the homegrown ones, and you know the one I'm talking about. He is a special police officer. His whole thing, he wants to do it here at home. And the ones that we have now, they have a vested interest in being here. That's the kind of police officer that we're looking to have. And we're blessed. That's the kind of firefighters that we have. But we work as a joint team. We should not look at some other kind of model. We should look at what fits Guadalupe. What can we afford? What can we do? What fits us? It's not a one size fits all. So I asked to please look at this and help us to see how we can move forward in getting the officers that we need. That's my report. Any questions?
Thank you, Chief. Any questions yet from?
I do.
Please.
One of the things that I was noticing in the report, while I'm listening and I'm trying to really understand and appreciate where you're coming from, I feel like there's maybe not the addressing of what will keep the officers here, right? So, and then even if we approve these positions, we have availabilities that we're unable to recruit for. Because like you mentioned, maybe other departments have more money or more incentives. Is there something else we're not looking at in terms of maybe sponsoring someone to go to academy and having some sort of contract built into that? Is that something we could look at in terms of helping with recruitment or enticing someone to be here? I don't know, I'm just thinking outside the box versus just saying we're gonna approve these positions, but then they go vacant because we can't recruit someone anyway. Are we not addressing that first?
That is part of it. The whole thing to look at, there's recruitment and then there's the retention.
Right.
We can recruit. It takes a while. From page 4 and page 5, I put what other cities are doing to give examples. And I also put things that we could look at as possibilities for the recruitment. But then too, now we have to look at the retention. Some of these things would fit that other departments do, but we have to look at, this is national. Everyone is looking for police officers. And it's a cyclical kind of thing. Give it, when after the war, at least from the 70s, military came back. That's where they did most of the recruiting. That was pretty easy. Okay, as time goes on now, most of the young kids, they went to college. So instead of becoming police officers, they went straight to college into business. That will eventually flow back around, but we have to really stay ahead of not only trying to get people, but how do we keep them? As far as going to the academy, we have to look at what fits Guadalupe. It's that going to the academy, that's going to be at least 6 to 7 months just recruiting. And then another 6 or so months to go through the academy, 4 months of training, and then a year probation. That's a lot of money spent for something that we don't use. I hate putting that term, for almost a year and a half. To where if we can get officers that want lateral, to come to our department that have already been trained. That's what some of the other departments do to us.
Right.
They wait till our people are trained and then they go, hey, we can give you more, come here. So, it's always gonna be a battle. But we have to look at too is what do we have to sell here? One of the biggest things that we have that a lot of other areas don't have is the USDA grant with the agriculture. There's a home loan you can get for 1%, 2%, or 3%. The city may be subsidized down payment. You can get a family in here, they'll be here for 5 to 8 years because their kids will be going to school. They'll be paying property taxes. They'll be invested in this community. They'll be buying homes, whether new homes or whatever. They would stay here. So there are things that we could put together to kind of do that. But first, I gotta be able to get them in the door.
How does your, on page 7, you talk about the fiscal impact. How does what Robert Brawl talked about in terms of where we are today, how does that impact what you're proposing with these 2 officers and the sergeant?
Well, the 2 officers, right now, we have 2 open positions anyhow.
Right.
I'm sorry, that are budgeted. So we'll work on those. But talk with our human resource person. Once we really start working on those, then we'll have others that'll be coming. And if we only say, well, only got 2 and we get 6, 7, 8 people, that are at least potential, then we're gonna lose those 6 or 7, 8 people because all you got is 2, we'll go look someplace else. Now, we might not be able to hire them right away because it's gonna take at least a 6 to 8 month process just to go through backgrounds. But having those positions, we can say at least, okay, we're gonna have 2 more. So now we can open up to have more people that we can recruit to kind of come in.
But you're asking for these positions now. We've got 2 openings that are ongoing now, so these are the additional. When do you want these folks?
We would like to have that approval now. It's one of those things, yeah, we understand. We're not going to fill it right away. But at least being able to go and recruit for it, saying that the money is there, it's gonna take a while. By the time we get you on board, we'll be in the next fiscal year, at least right now, the other 2 positions, we won't fill this fiscal year. Because we haven't even started. Go ahead.
I think what you're looking at is close to 400,000, which you'd actually have to do, if you wanted to do it now, would be some sort of budget amendment for some of that. Or you have to look at this in terms of the next fiscal year budget. And start recruiting now, so you could look at increasing the budget by 400,000, and that doesn't take into consideration cost of living. And that part of the budget, so what he's looking at, if you wanted these positions, I think you'd almost be looking at it for the next fiscal year.
That's what I'm wondering too, is if you have 2 vacancies now
the future.
and you're already not in the process of filling, no candidates are on the table, correct? for
That's
this year,
correct.
Right, so I'm thinking this is something that should be coming up in the next fiscal year, not now.
And the other thing is you don't really know what that fiscal year is gonna be when you look at the totality of all the departments and. You don't know where your revenue might be, I'm not trying to, I'm just trying to state that. You have to look at your overall expenses and your revenues, and this is 400,000 above and beyond what our budget is today. This fiscal year, so our next fiscal year budget, you'd have to be looking at an additional 400,000 plus whatever. Increases there might be in the budget for cost of living in all departments, not to mention, you'd have to probably be thinking about, recreation, because part of that is funded by ARPA, which is gonna go away, and a lot of those positions are paid for through ARPA, which then would, if that goes away, then you'd have to look to increase the general fund for those positions, if you wanna keep that as one of your primary goals.
Also, not to mention that POA negotiations are being open right now as well too.
And some of the other.
Correct. And there are proposals as well too that we are just starting to negotiate.
I would ask that this, at least the additional 2 officers and the sergeant, be seriously discussed and put on the agenda for the next fiscal year. But for this fiscal year, at least for the emergency preparedness, we still have a lot to do from this disaster just by that itself. I'm now being tasked with some of that paperwork. Man, I don't have the time.
What about your lieutenant?
The way this works right now, lieutenant is running a department. My job, really, director of public safety, I handle budgeting, big projects, and staff. I rely on what we pay our people to do. I rely on my fire captains to run their shifts. They report to me, what's going on, what do you need, equipment, what training do you need? That's how we stayed on top of getting those things done. It is an administrator position. And I do a lot of administration on the police side. So I have them run their shifts. My job is to take care of the funds, i.e. here, personnel, hiring, equipment, long-term planning.
In terms of the emergency preparedness coordinator, I feel like we need more information on what that's gonna look like. Like you mentioned, this is not an officer position. This is gonna be someone, a private citizen, clerical. And so do we even have a job description, a salary range of what that's gonna look like? I feel like that's something we would need to know. Like, what is gonna be the fiscal impact? So maybe we could have staff, excuse me, staff prepare something for us to look at in terms of what that would look like. on paper.
That position was already filled at one time. The person just
Right.
left a year ago. We had to move the monies last fiscal year to balance the budget when that person left. So there.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
And there is a job description available.
Okay,
Right.
so
All
it's
that's
not
there.
updated,
And
what
you
it
also
would look
have a note of 108,986. For this, now is this a current position? Do you have this? I know Josue may or may not be that person, I don't know.
Yeah.
So is this an additional 108?
Mr. Mayor, if I
Yes.
could, as you may recall, and I hope this works, yeah, it does. At last year's, approval of the budget, there was a need to, cut expenditures, as you recall. So what happened as a result of that, the emergency preparedness, coordinator was initially on the budget, but those dollar amounts were removed, along with, I think, 2 officer positions. So we know generally, based on the budget calculation at the beginning of the year, the 108,000 is pretty accurate. It's just that there is no dollars in the current budget to support it.
Okay. So that's what the other officers, the 2 officers and sergeant, you're looking at next fiscal year.
Yes, and what it really comes down to is hopefully to replace what was taken out.
Right.
So that's what we're looking at. We will work for these 2 that are already open,
Yes, yeah.
but we're looking for some kind of assurances that we can really start working for the other 2 somewhere in that year and hopefully be able to have the emergency preparedness this fiscal year to be able to handle the things that we got going on now.
So this amount you have here is 108,000 for the whole fiscal year.
Right.
Yes.
And so what are we talking about now for the remainder of this?
5 months of that, it's
Yeah, half of that. Yeah.
roughly a little less than half of that.
I hate to be like a Debbie Downer monkey wrench. Part of
That's your
that,
job.
part of the 2 officers in the emergency preparedness was only part of what was cut out of the budget to balance it. there was actually $1 million, so there's other areas of the budget that were cut. Just, and I can't even name them, but I just wanted to let you know that it wasn't just the officers that were cut, it was a total of $1 million to balance the budget. And then and a thought just occurred to me, and I don't know why it just comes now, but it just seems to me like if you could just look at the retention side, maybe in the, whatever that means to keep them here, maybe you could have a leaner force and not worry about just drawing upon large numbers to hope that you might hang on to some and maybe look at upping the ante for the ones that you have. Just a thought.
Yeah.
Well, you can't get any leaner with 3 people.
No, I'm talking,
Finance.
no, but I'm talking about backfilling what you have and.
Well, and that's what I'm saying is, we're gonna work to backfill, but we still, we have to pay the ones that are on light duty.
Right.
That's 2, and some of these are gonna be long-term that we might not even see back. And so technically, even with those 2, we will not be at full staffing.
The previously, the emergency preparedness coordinator position, was that filled by a previous police officer?
No, the civilian.
And Chief, may I add, I know this is not a discussion now when it comes to budgeting for the next fiscal year or next fiscal years for retention purposes. That would be a discussion in the future, but would like to offer suggestions on how we could that have yet to be mentioned by Chief Catch that can be offered possibly in future fiscal years for long-term goals of retention of police officers. As Chief Catch did mention, Guadalupe is unique. I think that there are great advantages in regards to that. And there are many people out there that do not have police officer experience that could be a great entryway for our city to start here.
Now, regarding the emergency preparedness coordinator, there's a startup. You can't go from 0 to 100 in 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. So where are we with that? In terms of getting this person ready as a, the emergency preparedness coordinator.
I don't want to step on our HR person, but we had advertised. We had a potential candidate and he never came back.
There were a total of 5 candidates that were interviewed in November. Out of the 5, when we invited them, 1 withdrew before the interview started. That left 4 the day of the interview, where 2 were no-shows. Out of the other remaining 2, 1 was highly unqualified. The other one, which was left, I gave a thought to Chief Catch to have a consideration where there would be need to be training, as compared to his initial thought that he would like to have someone that would be 100% competent and experienced coming on board, where he had an informal coffee interview and then essentially abandoned his candidacy without responding back in January. That left us again with the floods with Poseway.
Which isn't bad.
Correct.
Correct me if I'm wrong, we do have money in the budget in terms of the idea which you floated with from code enforcement to emergency preparedness, with a little uptick in the emergency preparedness, right? So in a sense, right now, we do have that in the budget, correct?
That was one of the ideas that we had floated. But we've been playing musical chairs with finance for quite a while, and I know I bugged the crap out of Janice and Bob and everybody else about, every Janice, every dollar. It's, I've been working on it. So, he was one of our candidates at one time, and so we looked at to elevate that position from the code compliance. He's been helping. He's asked to learn. He says, I really want to learn. And so I took him with me when we went down to the Pioneer Street He was extremely helpful with the families getting things done. He was translating, helping with our other community groups to get things happening. So what we had looked at was when I got here, fire did code compliance. And being director, I could move those things around. So I wanted more direct code compliance. That's how we had the code compliance officer. Well, our needs shifted. And so I moved him from code compliance over to emergency preparedness. As this thing was going on and as FEMA is now coming out and there's a lot of paperwork. So shifting some of the code compliance duties back to fire. So that's the administration part. And I gotta be honest, that's the plus side of a director of public safety. I got both. Instead of infighting, I'm not gonna do that. I can utilize the limited resources and personnel to kind of to fit what we need to happen. So we're gonna talk about using some of those funds from one position, shift them over to this to get us through the end of the year at the very least.
It would be easier if we would have maybe for future description, so we make sure that if we are approving something that is not on the budget, our constituents are gonna be asking us questions why we made decisions. So it would be nice to have a description in regards to the emergency preparedness coordination to make sure there's not any overlap. I have been, a lot of people have been questioning in regards to this position. And so it's just,
I guess
Just a job description to make sure that we know what that person's doing.
Oh,
I will forward that immediately after. this
yeah,
meeting.
we have that, yes.
You know, it sounds like it's an internal. Like Josue is gonna be that, and I'm sorry.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry that this, okay, I'm real, all right, there we go. I'm really sorry that this got into a public discussion without, I mean, it was not, sorry. Thank you. I wish that it had, we had, this is something that we looked at prior to this generation of the report. And then that idea was set aside to kind of address the issue more globally. It was not ready for prime time. Some of you remember that expression. There are concerns about, I have from a legal point of view of the way we would have to promote an internal candidate when there was a recruitment and an existing position. And we need to work that out before we can get into any further discussion on that, or at least I would ask that you allow us to go back. If that's something the council's interested in looking at, we can do that. We already, we already discussed this pretty thoroughly and we're going to discuss it further. But I would appreciate if we would have time to do that. If that's something the council's interested in considering, we can bring that at the next meeting.
I think that's what some of the council people are saying, that it is important for us to, and now the chief is asking for this emergency preparedness coordinator, so we need to deal with that. So, and you know, our HR person was also talking about it, so. You know, you have before us this resolution that it's not gonna.
I think it's a resolution.
Did I see it?
No, there's no resolution.
Did I see it? Request for funding, sorry, same thing. It's saying that you're gonna have some money. So I would then say, let's bring it back to where we can actually get down to the weeds and say, what's going on, because you know, I had experience with Josue down there and I know what that person can do and I know what that person needs to be able to do. And so I shut my mouth, I'll talk about it now, but we need to bring it forward to where we can actually get someone. We need emergency preparedness.
Okay, we can do that for sure.
Okay.
And I actually, that was the original idea, but then, like I said, there was this discussion of a more global discussion, which I think the council needed to have this information. So it was, you know, it wasn't my decision. I just make that clear. But I'm hearing what the council's saying. And I think we can certainly bring that at the next meeting, no problem.
There was two letters that we received or I received, and I said certain individuals may have received regarding this topic. And the letters are back there. I don't know if Mr.
Doty?
Doty, do you want to speak on anything?
Hi, Robert Doty. Some of you know me. Some of you don't. Hi, Megan. Hi, Christina. Thank you for getting on the council, helping us out. I have a completely different view from Chief Cash on how we should do the emergency manager. So easy. We had budgeted a battalion chief and a emergency manager. If you combine the two together, you have a fire chief. And that way, we would be able to lower the discrepancy of the police budget, which commands 42% of your budget. And the fire, which only commands 18%. If you can get yourself a fire chief, that will give the police chief the time he needs to be able to get his department back up to staffing, full staffing. Because he's not trying to run the fire department and the police department. You have a fire chief, you have a police chief. And then you can get the discrepancies between the two departments a little more in line on how they should be. And it's so simple because we've talked in the past on the battalion chief. You combine the battalion chief and the emergency manager under the fire department wing, boom, problem solved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have direction.
Yes,
All right, thanks, chief.
thank you.
And we're gonna take a biological break.
Emergency preparedness.
Yeah, for 5.5 minutes.
Okay.
Shannon, you're on.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council. This item is to approve a list of city veteran names for new streets and parks in Hasadera. I'm hoping that you'll adopt a resolution approving submission of recommended list of names of veterans to Hasadera Development for use in streets and parks. The city has a proud history of naming streets for veterans. Back in 2009, and the resolution is attached here, named streets after Michael Pagling, Philip Hernandez, and Arturo Frasco. All three who lost their lives in Vietnam. Pagling and Hernandez are located west of Pioneer, and South Carrasco just got named as part of Lot 5 in the Pasadena development. So the names that were recommended for use in the last resolution have been used. Additional streets in Pasadena need names, and the city council had previously indicated that it wished to honor additional veterans with street names, and the Pasadena developer has agreed to do so. Names have been solicited for quite some time through the city's website, through public meetings, and through word of mouth. There was quite a list of names that were nominated. That list was shortened to the list that's included as attachment 2 by a committee that included Joe Tagalong, Stone Julian, Pete Segovia, and Al Ramos. The development engineer, Lori Spear, and I went through that truncated list. We did things such as checking spelling, making sure that the names are spelled correctly, and then also checking. We were concerned that streets that had similar duplicate names in adjacent communities, we were concerned for confusion with public safety. So those were considered for names park instead of streets. City staff also confirmed that there are 20 streets that need to be named. And when we took over Lot 4, the city has now 2 city-owned parks in the Lot 5 development. And then the plan is to name streets with the suffix of drive and for cul-de-sacs with the suffix of port. So you can take a list of the names. The highlighted is what the name would be. And then if it's a street, it'll be drive, and if it's a cul-de-sac, it'll be port. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
One of the, by the way, the group that, there was a whole bunch of individuals involved with that selection, and we've had probably, I don't know, 150, 200 names. And Gilbert was on there, quite a few individuals, mainly Korean veterans, I don't think it was World War II veterans.
Yes.
I mean, on the committee that actually. But there was, and you can imagine there was a lot of names thrown out there that we had to kind of look at. One was brought up that, well, these 2 individuals should be on the list, and they weren't even veterans. So, there was it's been several years that we've been working on this thing. But, thank you for that report. Is there any comments, on the names?
The park list, do you want me to use that? Cause I know that you had requested for sent the renaming of Central Park to be brought to the Rec and Park Commission meeting. Do you want this list to be given to them? Cause I don't think they have an.
Well, I'm gonna get to them, but I think that's a kind of a separate issue with the park, Central Park. Because these parks, they're the pocket parks
In Pasadena.
are in Pasadena.
They're actually bigger than pocket parks. One is on Del Mar Drive and actually has a play structure on it. And one is off of Esperanza Drive. They're not the tiny little ones.
Okay, all right.
Those 2 are fairly sizable.
Regarding that, the Central Park is where you want to ask the community if they want to name an individual, because they don't have to be veterans there. It could be-
With a different criteria.
Yeah, this criteria of veterans dead, deceased. I mean, there was a question of, what about this person is still alive, and with his brother is deceased, veteran, one of the streets named veteran.
So for that, would you rather, rather than go to the Rec and Park Commission, do you want us to do some type of outreach first before we have them recommend a name?
No, I would And that's a separate item, and it's.
Yeah, I
It's
know.
not just my choice, it's the choice of the council in terms of naming it. But that was our recommendation, when we spoke, Shannon and I said, let's name this for an individual. So does that answer your question? Given this is only for, okay, that's the, so.
Yeah, okay.
So it sounds it sounds like you're looking for direction, maybe at a different time regarding Central Park and the criteria you're looking for to present to Parks and Rec.
Yes, which I know that this isn't technically related, but the Rec and Park Commission meeting is on Tuesday, and so I'm putting the agenda together tomorrow. So I'm just wondering if that is something you guys want on this coming agenda, or if you want more feedback from the public first and then bring it to the next.
On this, I would let them know that there's a couple parks over there that would be named after individuals, and why. That's the.
Could Parks and Rec begin the initially start discussions of maybe what they're looking for? That would be great.
That's
Yeah,
the
let's start
direction
with
that
that.
I'm asking, yeah.
Let's start there.
Okay, any questions regarding the names that are up for appointment on the street?
I think I appreciate how much collaboration.
Yes.
Yeah, you can tell that a lot of work has gone into it, so thank you.
A motion for the.
I will make
A written resolution.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 2023-14.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Pastor Junior.
GCL.
Councilmember Hernandez.
Aye.
Councilmember Robles.
Aye.
Councilmember Lizaldi.
Aye.
Mayor Julian.
All right. All eyes, please.
Thank you very much. I forward this to the development engineer.
Good.
Wonderful, that's so exciting.
Well, it's interesting because you have, like in Poinsal, yeah, snow forward. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. It's nice to have names after, just like Campodánico, people don't know Campodánico. Why is that name Campodánico? Why is that name Calmasini? Why is the name Matsutani? Why is the name Almaguer? Why is the name Hernandez? So people start looking at it and say, why is their name, where we have, I don't know, the Sanchez brothers? Just for reference, one of the Sanchez brother family has eight people that run the service. 8 individuals. That's pretty good. And then we have some really, like the Serrano family, the Serrano himself, Ernie was basically almost up to congressional middle line. So anyway.
It would be nice if some folks have some sort of thought, like
Yeah,
that, as a part of eventually down the road.
Yeah, exactly.
Just question, Shannon. You know, with the naming, do they get some sort of like, something added to the sign that signifies that they were veterans? Like the shield of the, what branch they served or whatnot? I know I've seen that in the past in some.
You see Purple Heart or something.
Right, correct.
On the sign itself?
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
We don't have that as part of our standard care of the city. And where some of that might be difficult to pull off is when it's more than one person and more than one war. We'd end up with some interesting challenges in trying to figure out what to put on each sign. You also get into the fact that the signs start getting either too big or the writing too small. Now, there are interesting things we can do if you wish to have maybe more information. I put up at one of the facilities in Santa Maria a brass plaque that has information on the people who are being honored.
Maybe something as far as a small plaque on one of the brick walls ascending up to over the bridge one time when somebody's walking. That the streets in this residence were named after some of the local veterans.
So I would be happy to put together some options for city council to consider, especially in light of the fact that there are parks in the South Pasadena portion where these streets are being named. So perhaps something in and around that area or access to that area. Let me mull over some ideas
Yes,
and bring it back to council.
Thank
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Gilbert. We'll go to, did we vote on it already?
Yeah. I had to ask Todd too, because I was like spaced it.
Now we're on 15.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
You will recall that the last meeting, we were, the council was asked to do a second reading of the vacant commercial property registration and property maintenance ordinance. But as I advised you at that meeting, I requested the item be pulled and that it would be pulled for discussion because we, just hours before the meeting, a letter was received by a local business property owner and attorney Stu Jenkins, who has been here. He actually spoke against the ordinance at the first reading. He provided a letter which is attached to the staff report that alleged some constitutional and other problems with the ordinance, which I said I needed to review. I'm glad I did, because I completed my review and I realized that unfortunately there was a little problem with the ordinance in terms of basically one word. I mentioned that at the end of the staff report that or on page 3 of the staff report, that the word shall was used in a place where it probably should have been may, or, you know, not in the sense that as I said in the staff report, it was never the intent to force on a warrantless illegal search. Shall is like, you know, you shall do this, but not, you know, you're not required to, or, you know, we're going to come in and illegally inspect your property. But that clearly is not what it says. Shall means shall, and it means it certainly, he had every right to point out that that was a problem with the statute or the ordinance. So made a change to that section to make it clear that any search that was not given consensually would require an administrative search warrant. Is an extra step for us, but if it's tied to the code compliance action, it could result in cost recovery. And then there was also the other section that about the letter that they would, you give the police a letter to allow them to come on to your property to arrest trespassers. Almost every business owner asked for that. But under the circumstances, I felt that we should not make that a requirement either. So that is an optional requirement. But other than that, I didn't find Mr. Jenkins' concerns to be to have any real legal merit. I understand there's philosophical disagreement with the ordinance, but that's not a legal problem. This is based on health, safety, and welfare. With the changes that I've recommended be made to the ordinance, I recommend the council conduct the first reading and continue this to the next regular meeting on March 14th for the second reading and adoption. And before you take any action or I answer any questions you may have, I will share that I let Mr. Jenkins know, and he said he wouldn't be able to review or participate in this meeting. And I said, well, if you have, you can always do what you did again, which is send us something before the second reading and I'll take a look at it. Hopefully it will be more than a couple hours before the meeting. Anyway, I'm able to answer any questions. Thank you.
Questions? Is there a recommendation that the city council introduce vacant commercial property registration and property maintenance on first reading as revised?
I'll recommend.
The second,
I'll second.
any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Bill.
It's your turn.
I'd like to table this 16.
Table, okay.
Is that okay? Board, I mean, council?
The objection.
Objection, I'm gonna give it some thought. And I'll be in contact with each of you.
Is there any objection to tabling it?
No.
Okay.
There's only eight.
To make it.
Kevin's got time. Okay, future agenda items.
Future.
Done. Good.
Bill, how's the ordinance? Or we're looking at coming on the hoping with the trailers, boats and stuff, parked on the street. Means that.
Yes, thank you.
No, there was.
It has not gotten very far, unfortunately. I'm sorry about that. Chief has not contacted me about it, and I have not contacted him about it. So.
That bus went by fast.
I will just say that, we have ordinances in place already that could address some of the concerns. So why don't you call me at your convenience, not tomorrow, sorry, my wife's birthday, but call me,
Well, I had a beer for Valentine's Day, so I might as well.
well, that's right.
Yeah, call tomorrow.
Call me tomorrow then.
No.
But we'll give you some specific, and then we'll see if there's a way we can address it, the more immediate concerns in the rules, and then we'll talk. You and I can talk about more what you're looking for, and then I'll talk to the chief, because, well, he says no, but.
Yeah, after that, yeah.
Well, it's, I thought that's what you said. I was just repeating it, but.
I wonder why I don't see you in the morning.
Okay, any future agenda items? Hearing none, announcements?
My daughter attended the father-daughter dance, and she had a great ball. I think it's so important that we include male figures and possibly we can answer input, and we have positive male role models in our family life. So I thought that was a great opportunity. Also, there is a nonprofit roundtable this coming Friday with most of the.
About the dance, I mean,
Oh, yeah, there was a, yesterday, the Mariachi Garibaldi went to Mary Baron, and they actually played for 800 kids. On Saturday, we had about 250 kids. Mariachi Garibaldi did a great job. They did the Star Wars singing song and also Coco, and a lot of kids were just like leading to the beat, to that engagement with our students.
Did you talk to Chachi on that? Did he film?
Yeah,
Okay, use it, all right. Did he send that out?
no, he's, he just edited it and it came out really, really nice. He did a long shot video in front of the arch, and it looks really nice.
Didn't he play one song for him?
Yes, he did.
Okay.
They did. Before everybody left, we had a solo shot. It was filmed. It was nice.
To add to the Viva, there's gonna be Folklorico on March 18th at 7 o'clock. So if anyone's interested in that, it'll be here as well.
I was gonna mention we have like potential dodgeball tournament coming up.
Yes, so I was just waiting for the approval today, but that'll be March 25th. Which is a Saturday. That was consent.
We approved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But piggybacking on what Christina was talking about, I had the opportunity and kind of thank you for letting us participate with being there that night for the daddy daughter dance, which wasn't just daddy, it was uncles, grandpas. We had a wonderful variety. It was a wonderful event and, you know, everyone was buzzing about it after, which was great. So dodgeball tournament, let's continue supporting it any way we can, whether it's even outreach to sponsorship or helping just get the word out. Maybe thinking about online registration at some point. I know, very difficult, but you know, that's an exciting thing that's the feedback. If the feedback isn't, we don't want to participate, it's we want to participate. You know, how can we grow that? So great job. It was a really wonderful event and people are excited for things to come.
They look good. Good job.
It was gorgeous.
Who helped you with that?
Myra, and her daughters actually needed community service hours, so they helped. James Bataya, her partner, also helped as well. So we did all the prep around, I wanna say like 2 o'clock that day. And she did all the food spread, which that was a beautiful table. She did such a good
It
job.
was overwhelming, and she kept bringing trays out from the back throughout the night to replenish. It was like a never ending buffet for the family.
She, her other job is for Rancho Napomo, and she does a lot of catering for them, so she's super familiar with that, and that's part of the reason why when we did the interview and she discussed that, we were like, oh, we gotta get her, cause she's perfect for this.
And didn't, particular council member help out too? Like,
Megan did. Yes.
The father, daughter.
Yes.
They had about, and Santa Maria Times came and did a wonderful, yeah, they did a wonderful
Yeah.
art with.
Okay, I should see that.
Oh, it was great. And then the kids at school were talking about, oh, I think I'm first. It was wonderful. It was very positive. And like you mentioned, you know, having that male figure in our kids' lives and in our community and giving them an opportunity to be out and dance and have fun and laugh. It was great. It was a really good event.
Gene, any last one? I have a couple. SB tag was on the 16th. We pushed Caltrans to actually start meeting with us. Because we're landlocked, not landlocked, roadlocked by those guys. Calvans was on the 9th. I have now the alternate Nelson, Supervisor Nelson is primary. Because they meet once a month. Everybody meets once a month. February Food Bank, we saw a total of 205 individuals, 58 new ones. It's breakfast tomorrow at the food bank, 7:30 to 10 o'clock for volunteers. You can go. Anybody else? Yeah.
I'll bring my wife.
Thursday.
Oh, that's right, Saturday.
Thursday or is it tomorrow?
Thursday, right?
I know
Okay,
something
whatever day
got,
it is.
something got canceled.
Put my garbage up today, don't pick it up till Tuesday. Wellness Bill was mentioned, that's tonight, right?
5:30 to 7:30.
There's a Royal Theater 2 meeting, tonight, to talk about the Royal Theater.
It's just about,
Update on this is this is a list of, some of you have it, I think Hannah has this. It's those individuals that
Oh, yes.
actually, were part of the, here. And
During the storm.
Todd.
Yeah.
Listen on the
anyway,
website.
the barbecue that was held by the Knights of Columbus, they sold all the tickets.
Yeah, 500.
500 place, and there was a couple of, I think they were close to maybe $8,000 bucks. Plus, several other individuals, couple thousand, so it's close to probably, closer to 10,000 that they got for that effort, and that goes to the Little House, where it's interesting because the first 2-3 weeks, some people just got a bed. They were sleeping on the floor. They just got a bed. One individual, well, some of the individuals, they ordered, Los Amigos ordered through Amazon beds. And I said, well, why don't we just go over here and to a furniture place and get a bed? So they delivered it, one of them that was delivered to, it was supposed to be delivered on Oliver Street, and it was delivered to Point Sal Dunes. So I got a call and they said, that's over there at Martha Polito. That was at her house. Yeah, anyway, now what's happening is that the biggest issue now is vehicles, because there was probably 8 vehicles that were actually destroyed. And FEMA will only cover one unless unless somebody has to go one way, and then somebody has to go another way, and there's a mileage difference. But a lot of folks now, they're having a hard time with transportation. People have to borrow cars and stuff like that, so. There's one individual, one family that's up at La Florida.
Santa Clarita.
Yeah, they're upstairs. They're trying to, I think, March or within the next couple of weeks, hopefully they'll have a place to stay. All of them have homes, which is good. But there's that whole process of starting from scratch. You need clothes, you need shoes, you need everything. Anyway, it's going well. I'd like to see it go a little quicker. But the little house on Los Amigos of Guadalupe did work out.
It was a really good event. It was a lot of it.
Yes, it was a good turnout. Okay. Gentlemen,
I have a quick one. Sorry, guys. So we've been working on this project for about the last month and a half. It was an idea. Started about 3 months ago. We just got approved and Mackenzie will have a new sport added to the junior high program. We've been working and we're approved for wrestling. So last week we had a Thursday meeting with Coach Moreno. And 22 individuals showed up that were in the 7th and 8th grade class. I had a meeting in San Luis Obispo last month with the Cuesta College wrestling coach, and we're gonna coordinate with Paso, Lamson, Los Osos, and Mesa Middle School. And we're actually gonna be having 5 duels. If you've ever seen a high school wrestling match, that's where you weigh in the kids, and there's gonna be specific weight classes. So what we're trying to do is touch base with some of the kids here who also play football, but get them started and get their feet wet in the program. And, since it is school, we'll recommend, of course, they gotta have the GPA up. I've got a great group of coaches who mentorship's gonna be there. So this is exciting. I did coordinate with Anna yesterday, and we're trying to lock in the facility as far as utilizing the B&G, the Boys and Girls Club. And then also having a couple of duels. We'll have 3 away duels and we'll have 2 home matches. And those days just happen to fall in where we have some open spots at the city auditorium, so we're hoping that to promote that and bring the kids out and families. And we got a mat ordered, singlets, warm-ups, via Mackenzie, so it's big for them to get behind this. So we're hopefully to keep it running and get these kids involved, so.
The kids are very excited.
Yeah, and it's for girls and boys. So we're working on having a female coach out there. And it's gonna be exciting. Exciting.
if I may ask, what kind of mat are they? Is it the stand-up mat?
No, we got a state-of-the-art mat that's coming in, and nowadays they have these resilites that they're not the big roll-up heavy ones. These are the new ones where they just fold, and they're 6 foot, and 2 kids can carry them on. And you put them together before practice, but yeah, this is exciting. So we're looking at uniforms and everything, so it would be under the school district, so. Cool.
Nice collaboration.
That's good.
We're happy.
Okay, any other announcements, staff?